team's book. I wrote it, or at least I collaborated in writing it. No book is individually produced, as you know. I just believe it. I know you'll say something in this world, some spirit that you will never overcome. What is it, this principle? The spirit of man. And do you consider yourself a man? If you're a man, you're the last man. Your kind is extinct. We are the inheritors. Do you understand that you are alone? You are outside history. You unexist.
You don't exist. This is, I was just thinking, brought to you by the Caribbean radio show, The Knowledge Station. I am Sister Ikua, and we're talking about terror and World War III. This kind of power that he was talking about will be worldwide. But these wars, though centered on oil, seemingly centered on oil, are in reality for the control of mankind. The ones who have control over the resources like energy, water, food, will rule the earth and therefore will rule every one of us. Here is a scenario for the first European wars. And as I said, when we know the strategies and the tactics of the past, we know what the present will bring and what the future will hold. Because if the plan worked in the past, they're going to keep on implementing the same type of plan. So from a website, I saw, it was a website called 3worldwars.com, and it's very, very interesting. So I kind of excerpted some of the things that they said. So here we go. He started off by saying, history books record that World War I, or the first mass European war, started when the nations went to war to avenge the assassination of Archduke Francis Ferdinand, the heir to the Habsburg throne, in 1914. But of course, that's a lie. But that's the lie that they told us, told the world to get them into that war. That was the official story. It's always going to be an official story, but he goes on to show what it really was about and how they did this. Up until, this is quoting again, up until America's entry into the war, the American people had followed the advice of President George Washington in his farewell address in 1796. He said, "It is our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world." Why? By interweaving our destinies with that of any part of Europe, entangling our peace and prosperity in the toils of European ambition, rivalship, interest, humor, or caprice. Now that was 200 years before World War I. The pressures to involve the United States of the American government in the precursor for World War I came in 1909, long before the assassination of this so-called Archduke Ferdinand. In 1909, this is what was happening. Now, stick with me because, like I said, you have to see what happened in the past because they just telescoped the play. This has been an ongoing skirmish between the Europeans because they were trying to divide up the world. They were trying to see who was going to be the arbiters of everything in the world. So in 1909, this is what happened. Norman Dodd, a former director of the Committee to Investigate Tax Exempt Foundations in the U.S. House of Representatives, testified that the committee was invited to study the minutes of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Now that's important because the Carnegies owned a whole lot of everything. They were like the Bill Gates of that day, plus, because their foundation still exists today. That committee said, now get this, the trustees of the foundation brought up a single question, and that is, if it is desirable to alter the life of an entire people, is there any means more efficient than war? Now, this was the International Peace Committee asking the question about altering life, is there a more efficient way than war? So they discussed this question for a year, and they came up with the answer, and this is what it was. There is no known means more efficient than war, assuming the objective is altering the life of an entire people. That led to the question, how then does the United States involve itself in war? An organization that had the emblem or the veneer of peace, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, began the drumbeat of the so-called war to end all wars. With wars and now this new war on terror, the question is continually asked over and over again. With these endless wars and skirmishes all over the earth, why? For power, for control, the control of lands, the control of water, the control of resources, and the control of our population. This is a new world order, folks. Be back in a sec.
Billions of people on planet Earth are living in ignorance. Before your very eyes, politicians are advancing a global plan. Since the time of Napoleon, secret societies have been influencing politicians to take over. Now, in the 21st century, their work of ages is coming to fruition. The New World Order is about the centralization of power.
Actually, the idea of global governance and a one world order has been around for centuries, and the term New World Order has been used frequently in recent history.
The New World Order means different things to different people, but to those who expect to be in control of it, it means the same thing. It means all the world under their control.
The first in-depth publication of note was Samuel Zane Batten's work, The New World Order, which was published in 1919. Under the cloak of Christianity, this order speaks of a new world rising and advocates social control over all people and all resources. It promotes a world federation with a world parliament, an international court, and a global police force.
The New World Order is like a rope. That rope is made up of cords of political, military, economic, scientific, cultural, and religious power that has always been pulling the world to a definite conclusion. Recently, that pull has been getting progressively stronger. Each cord of a New World Order rope is composed of people at the outer layers who have no idea what the ultimate goal of those at the center of each cord is. As people work their way to the center of each cord, the ultimate goal of those associated with the New World Order becomes clear. A one-world government, a one-world economy, a one-world military, a one-world society, and a one-world religion, all enforced with absolute control under a single world ruler. This goal is not democratic. In fact, most people will not want this goal to be pursued because it limits their freedom. In spite of popular resistance, this goal is being achieved through secrecy and progressive conditioning to make the public want this goal.
The goal of this manipulation has been for a very long time is to get the world population, or that majority of it anyway, to see as a good idea or the only option in given circumstances that are manipulated into place, the creation of a one world government to which nation states would be principalities, administrative units, a world central bank which would administer all financial transactions on the planet, a world currency which wouldn't be coins and notes, it would be merely electronic, cashless society for which there are fundamental implications for freedom, as we'll see as we go along tonight, a world army under centralized control with nation-state armies dismantled under the justification of seeking peace.
New World Order wants a global system where one small central authority of individuals can then dictate a policy that's going to be distributed down to the rest of the world, everywhere, in the smallest little town in the middle of nowhere in some remote country.
They believe that somebody must rule. After all, people are too darn dumb to know how to rule themselves. They figure that that's their role.
Yep. They believe believe that we're too dumb to rule ourselves. You know, I went to the bank today, Friday, go to the bank, get a couple of ducats, you know, try to fill your car up or whatever.
There is this like cozy little myth that is perpetuated between politicians and the media. Politicians walk the world stage as if they are the final arbiters of power in the world. So when a president speaks, the cameras run and it's flashed around the world, prime ministers and such like.
Many of the strategies used to control populations were originally developed by Edward Bernays, who coined the phrase public relations. Bernays said that if you manufacture an authoritative figure who repeats the same messages over and over, that this will appeal to the masses' subconscious desires.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry for that intervention. I thought it was over because I can't really see the board. So just hang in there with me. We're going to straighten this out as soon as I get my microphone fixed. But like I was saying, I went to the bank today, excuse me, to get some money out of the bank. And they were saying, well, why are you coming in? Why don't you do online banking? You know, why don't you take a picture of your check with your phone and just send it in? See, they want you to do all that electronic stuff because money after a while is just going to be electronic blip. So you won't know if it is real or if it's Memorex. You won't know, and when they decide that they're going to cut that off, or if it's a sunspot and your check don't get in, because it has to go up to the satellite and bounce back down, then it's going to be your problem. And they're going to disrupt whole nations behind this electronic banking. So let's continue reading the report, the Three World Wars report. He says, the method by which the United States was drawn into the start, the beginnings of the war was in 1911, when Winston Churchill was appointed the First Lord Admiralty in England. He wrote the following: the worldwide conspiracy for the overthrow of civilization has been steadily growing. So this is Winston Churchill. He said the worldwide conspiracy for the overthrow of civilization has been steadily growing. So Winston Churchill believed in a conspiracy, but he wasn't castigated. He wasn't labeled crazy. To continue, the second key appointment made during the pre-war period was the appointment of FDR, or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, as Assistant Secretary to the Navy by Woodrow Wilson. Roosevelt is also on record as concluding that there was a conspiracy, at least in the United States. He wrote, this is a conspiracy to get into World War I. He wrote to Colonel Edward Mandel's house, and this is what he said: the real truth of the matter is, as you and I know, that a financial element in the larger centers has owned the government ever since the days of Andrew Jackson. And I'm not wholly accepting the administration of Woodrow Wilson. The country is going through a repetition of Jackson's fight with the Bank of the United States, only on a far bigger and broader basis, end quote. So this country has been owned by the financial elements ever since the time of Andrew Jackson. That's right after the founding of the United States. Now, this was the same Franklin Delano Roosevelt who saw the conspiracies in those who own the government. Later, that same Roosevelt became a three-time U.S. president who oversaw World War II. He knew the banks were in control. Why? Because he was in the upper classes, in the upper echelons, and he benefited from those coups. And you're going to see what he did in World War II to make you know that even though he complained about it, or he stated it, it may not necessarily have been a complaint. It is documented that Roosevelt and his administration knew about the bombing of Pearl Harbor before it happened. And that he also knew after Japan had surrendered in World War II that it was unnecessary to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And my question is this: if they bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, why didn't they bomb Germany? Was it because these were little yellow people? We got to ask that question. Germany and Italy was left untouched, even though they were devastated, but they were left untouched by nuclear disaster. And that bombing of Japan, It shut Japan's mouth for the last 80 years. This is why they do not, the Japanese or anybody else, they're under a state of shock. And we talked about shock before, and I'm going to find the, because we're going to do a lot of echoing of different things because it's necessary for us to remember what the tactic is. I'm going to find this information about the shock doctrine, but Japan is under a state of shock. They know better than to reach out and do anything crazy. They don't even have a military. They don't have anything. All of that stuff was taken away from them. They just quietly, even during Fukushima, they quietly just fiddle along. Now we're going to talk about what shock is. Listen to this.
Remaking people, shocking them into obedience. This is a story about that powerful idea. In the 1950s, it caught the attention of the CIA. The agency funded a series of experiments. Out of them was produced a secret handbook on how to break down prisoners. The key was using shock to reduce adults to a childlike state.
It's a fundamental hypothesis of this handbook that these techniques are in essence methods of inducing regression of the personality. There is an interval, which may be extremely brief, of suspended animation, a kind of psychological shock or paralysis. Experienced interrogators recognize this effect when it appears, and know that at this moment the source is far more open to suggestion, far likelier to comply than he was just before he experienced the shock.
But these techniques don't only work on individuals. They can work on whole society. They can work on whole society. A collective trauma, a war, a coup, a natural disaster, a terrorist attack puts us all into a state of shock. We too become childlike, more inclined to follow leaders who claim to protect us. One person who understood this phenomenon early on was the most famous economist of our era, Milton Friedman. Friedman believed in a radical vision of society in which profit and the market drive every aspect of life, from schools to healthcare, even the army. He called for abolishing all trade protections, deregulating all prices, and eviscerating government services. These ideas have always been tremendously unpopular, and understandably so. They cause waves of unemployment, send prices soaring, and make life more precarious for millions. Unable to advance their agenda democratically, Friedman and his disciples were drawn to the power of shock. Friedman understood that just as prisoners are softened up for interrogation by the shock of their capture, massive disasters could serve to soften us up for his radical free market crusade. He advised politicians that immediately after a crisis, they should push through all the painful policies at once before people could regain their footing. Take a second look at the iconic events of our era, and behind many, you will find its logic at work. This is the secret history of the free market. It wasn't born in freedom and democracy. It was born in shock. There's one other thing I've learned from my study of states of shock. Shock wears off. It is by definition a temporary state. And the best way to stay oriented, to resist shock, is to know what is happening to you and why.
What is happening to you and why? There are other few incidents that happened as a precursor to World War II, or World War I, I'm sorry. And these were false flags. Now, everybody should know what a false flag is. If you don't,